Hi, folks. I'm Peter Lemieux with Rounding Third, and I tell baseball stories. And I think I got a great one today about a player that everybody knows about. He saved baseball. We had a scandal in 1919 where the White Sox accepted bribes and blew the World Series. Baseball was in ruination. Fans were disenchanted. Um, could you not? Were you even watching a real game? This man named Babe Ruth came into the picture. He did something nobody else had been doing ever. He hit home runs. He hit so many home runs that there were years in the 20s where Babe Ruth's home runs were more than whole teams' homers for the season. We tend to forget how great that was. Babe Ruth's personality was bigger than life. He was a big guy. You've all seen pictures of Babe Ruth. Um, he was a character, and he got people filling baseball stadiums again. It can really be stated that Babe Ruth in the 20s saved baseball. Because of that, people think you know all there is to know about Babe Ruth. The purpose of today's story is I want to share with you just a few things that I don't think you may have known about Babe Ruth. I'm not going to talk about his glory, his batting average, his home runs, his Hall of Fame, and all that. You guys mostly know that. Maybe that'll be another day. These are things that most people never knew about Babe Ruth. It's going to start with this. Babe Ruth first gained his fame as a pitcher, not a hitter. When he was signed to become a pro player, the Boston Red Sox put him in the minor leagues as a pitcher. Babe Ruth was a great pitcher, and he was destined to be a great pitcher until they started to see him hit the ball. And that it took a while. His first 4 years in the majors in the Red Sox, he was primarily a pitcher and an occasional batter. But the home runs went so far and brought people in that Babe Ruth switched. So in the beginning, Babe Ruth was a pitcher. Okay. He was one of the most dominant left-handed pitchers in the 1910, 1911, and so he won 89 games in 6 seasons, uh, including 24 in 1917. He won 24 games. That was the year that he pitched, um, and they won a World Series in 1917 with their ace pitcher, Babe Ruth. Now, by 1920, the Red Sox sold him, but primarily he started as a pitcher. Point number two, Babe Ruth did not retire as a Yankee. He got old, his career faded, and he signed with the Boston Braves, and his skills had diminished, but he ended his 22 years of playing 28 games as a Boston Brave. He started with the Boston Red Sox and ended with the Boston Braves, but he'll always be remembered as a New Yorker. Here's a beauty. Do you know that Babe Ruth was not a unanimous choice to the Hall of Fame? In the initial voting for the Hall of Fame, Babe Ruth, of course, got in. He was one of 5 players who got in. And in spite of his amazing statistics, he was not the leading vote getter. Ty Cobb was. And so there are some people who didn't even vote for him. That's pretty unusual. I don't know if you know this, but Babe Ruth grew up in an orphanage. That was why he had this great affection for visiting kids in the hospital, going to orphanages and stuff like that. But Babe Ruth was not an orphan. Babe Ruth grew up a German family in Baltimore area, but he quickly became a street kid. They had 7 children, Mr. and Mrs. Ruth. 5 died. Babe and his sister were the only ones who lived. But Mrs. Ruth, I can't remember her name, she was overwhelmed trying to keep everything together and treating sick children. Babe's father ran a bar, and he was busy all the time. His bar was not in the nicest section of town, and it was oftentimes had fights and things like that. So Babe Ruth was pretty well ignored. At the age of 7, his parents gave up on him because they couldn't make him go to school. He was on the streets every day. He drank, he smoked, he was hanging around with bad kids. And finally, the parents went to this orphanage, a Catholic orphanage, and said, please take our boy. So George Herman Ruth grew up and was educated in an orphanage, even though he wasn't an orphan. It was there that he learned to play baseball. This orphanage had a baseball team, and there was a man there who worked with Babe because he was such an exceptional player, great pitcher, and a great hitter. And it was there that the Boston Red Sox came and signed him to a contract. Right from that school, I think he was only 16 years old when he signed a contract, but he was young. Could be a year or two off on that. Now, another thing that you probably don't know, Babe's father died in a fight with a family member. I told you he had this bar and it was rough, and a family member came in while he was tending bar. A fight broke out and they took it to the street. Babe's father was hit, fell backwards, hit his head on the sidewalk, and ended up dying from injuries to the brain. So Babe Ruth's own father died in a bar fight. Okay, so that's another thing. Just a couple more that I want to tell you about. Do you know that Babe Ruth once pitched a combined no-hitter and he never got anyone out? June 23rd, 1917, with the Red Sox. Red Sox were playing the Washington Senators. Babe Ruth walked the leadoff batter and was so furious with the calls of the umpire that he started arguing with him vociferously and was kicked out of the game after facing one batter who he walked. The reliever, a guy by the name of, see if I can remember that, Ernie Shore. Ernie Shore. Everybody remembers Ernie Shore. He came in and retired every other hitter that came up. But the no-hitter goes on the records as a combined no-hitter, Babe Ruth and Ernie Shore. Babe Ruth got nobody out and got credit for pitching a no-hitter. Now, we all know Babe Ruth had unquenchable appetites, which got him in trouble. He certainly had an eating issue. He had an issue with women. Once his roommate once said, when we're on the road, I room with Babe's suitcases. He puts them in and I never see him again. So Babe went and did what he did. He stole home plate 10 times during his career. However, in the 1926 World Series, it ended with Babe being thrown out, stealing second, and the Yankees losing the series while he got thrown out. He had an immense amount of speeding tickets. That's what this is about. He had so many speeding tickets that he got arrested in Manhattan, and it was the second time in a month he'd been arrested, and he was sentenced to spend the rest of the day in jail. He only spent 45 minutes there because he was Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth was put in jail for speeding tickets. And folks, those are items about Babe Ruth, a few of them. His stories off the baseball field are immense, not always pleasant to hear. For some strange reason, The Babe, not known for his religious fervor, was affected by his Catholic upbringing, and it was told that occasionally people would see Babe Ruth going to Mass not on a Sunday, but during the week. Something inside him attracted to going back to this prayer that he had learned as a child. But even more peculiar, Babe and his wife split up, okay? She ended up living with a wealthy dentist on Long Island, and Babe ended up with an actress, something like that. It's a famous actress. But Babe would not marry her. And he got bugged, because he would take her out. They'd see her. They were together. Babe, when are you going to get married? He said, I can't get married because I'm a Catholic and they don't recognize divorce. When his first wife died in the middle of a week, on that Saturday, Babe got married to his second wife. But he waited until his wife died because he believed that he was not allowed to have, in his mind, he was married to the first wife, couldn't get married to two, which of course is a Catholic teaching. So in some strange way, there were some things about the orphanage that had a positive effect on Babe. Probably the most positive effect was he recognized he was a great baseball player by playing there. He got taught the game. When he went to the minor leagues with the Red Sox, it was said that he was not a troublemaker at all. He was so insecure that he wouldn't do the right thing that he followed the manager everywhere. First of all, he was playing with older men. He was a teenager, right? And so the manager took him under his wing. It's said that that's how he got his nickname, because the other players would see the manager go, and here Babe would be right behind, and they said, there goes the manager with his Babe, and that stuck. They started calling him Babe to his face. Well, folks, that's just a couple of points about one of the most famous, maybe the most famous baseball player ever. Not really about his baseball feats, but things that kind of flesh out a little bit more about Babe Ruth. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Join our community. Some of the best people out there in terms of knowledge of baseball and love of baseball history are right here on Rounding Third. So join up with us. That being said, thanks for being here. Have a great day, and I look forward to doing this again with you real soon. Peter Lemieux from Rounding Third. Arrivederci.